Welcome to the Whitetail Advantage Podcast with your host, Brett Bovin. Thank you for tuning in and enjoy the show.
What is up, everybody, and welcome to the Whitetail Advantage Podcast. I'm your host, Brett Bovin, and I am sick. There we go. That's awesome. Yeah, no. Excuse me. Yeah, I'm coming over being sick. It sucks ass. So all I have now is just the mucus crap in me. But hey, yeah, who doesn't like hearing about how sick I am and stuff like that? So hopefully the guys on the show, they don't make me laugh and stuff like that because I'm going to look like a cherry tomato. So yeah, looking forward to that. Anyways. Welcome back. It's good that we had 2 weeks off. It's Sunday, January 5th, 2025. And I have a couple things I want to say before I bring everybody on. So we have a subscriber goal of 230. Help us get us to there. Would be greatly appreciated. Our guest for tonight is Brandon Barlow. Excited for him. He's out in North Carolina, so excited to talk to him. If you're unfamiliar with the show, we call this the Electronic Campfire or the People Show. So basically, if you want to submit a comment or anything like that during the live show, feel free to submit it during the comment section. We'll pop them up during the show, and we'll pop them up during there, and we'll dress and stuff like that. Sorry, like I said, my mind is like in a million places right now because I'm still sick. And anyways, if you ever want to be a guest on the show, we never say no to anybody. So feel free to reach out to us on our social media platforms, or you can go to our website and check us out there. Also have a saying on the show, where's my quarter? Put your quarter in a slot machine. I simply believe that hunting is a dying sport, it's a dying lifestyle. So all I ask out there is everyone out there to help share the show. That's all I ask. Now, anyways, I do want to say, because it was the holiday season, it was Christmas time and New Year's, stuff like that. So I just want to say thank you to all of the servicemen out there, the law enforcement, the EMS, corrections officers, booking officers, nurses, doctors, all you guys. I can't say thank you enough to your service, and we're greatly appreciated, even for the men and women across the seas. I just can't say thank you enough for that. Anyways, like I said, I had some other stuff I want to say, but I'm not going to say it because I sound like dog ass. So enough of me chit chatting. Let's just bring on the guys. What's up, fellas? Oh, you have to unmute stuff.
Hey, Brett.
There we go. I muted you guys.
All right, we're here.
I muted you guys. Welcome, Brandon. Welcome to the show. I wish I wasn't sick.
Hey, everybody. Thanks, Brett. Appreciate it. I know. That sucks.
Yeah, it sucks ass. So I can say thanks to my kids because of that. Because, like I said, motherfucker, we're not even into the show. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, you're welcome. That was me.
Apple talk about this every show.
Already. Ting. There it is.
I thought we were going to start off a new year. John, you even turned it off.
I did, but I didn't realize it's on my Apple computer too. So I'm going to go ahead and shut my phone off.
It's not like you're an important person. I know all your grinder dates. They can wait a second.
Yeah, you know what? I had to pay for this shit somehow. So
you know what? John's going to be hosting our show, for our Valentine's show. So, John, you're going to be the host because I'm going to be coughing up a storm.
Oh, I can't wait. All right. So let's get the show started. You ready, Brett? I'm going to go ahead and mute you. I wish I had that power. All right. So Brandon Barlow, man. I know we all know you. We all follow you on Instagram and everything. North Carolina.
Yes, sir.
So rumor has it North Carolina has some of the best black bear hunting. That's what I've heard.
Yeah, we have the biggest black bears in the world, and good numbers. I mean, not like Gatlinburg, Tennessee black bears getting in your vehicles or anything, but good numbers of bears. Anywhere you have 1,000-acre tract, you're going to have bears. When you get out by the coast, that's where you get into the bears that don't hibernate. And so North Carolina, is notorious for these like mega bears. I think last year we had 265 Boone and Crockett entries,
Man,
which I think the next state had 25 or something. So yeah, I mean the black bear hunting here is unreal. I mean it's like deer hunting, South Dakota.
that's ridiculous because I've always wanted a black bear hunt. And here in Michigan, where Brett and Dave and I are, it's a draw system. So I put in for the points, get the draw in. And I think we had what, Dave? If I remember right, we had 2 or 3 bears the entire year that were like over 500 pounds. And I think Iron County, something's wrong with your set, Dave.
We get sows 500 pounds.
That's unbelievable, man.
Yeah.
It's huge.
I don't know if you guys follow Wild with Aspen. She's a chick.
Oh,
out in the Outer Banks.
Yep.
A biologist that's a photographer too, and so she's got a couple males over 9.
That is unbelievable. That's like
see them on her
Kodiak
page.
weight right there.
They put down a 770-pound bear up here in Jersey, and that's really big for around these areas up by us. Kind of, I'm north of there, but Frankie had a big one too by him.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah, I've seen some you guys posting some big pictures. I get some big bears. Where I am is in the center of the state, so they hibernate here. I've seen some 500-pounders, but that's a big bear for where I'm at. The guys out east would think I have little bears, but that's because in the Piedmont and West, they actually hibernate.
Yes, Brett, go ahead.
Thank you. I appreciate it. That's why I'm putting my hand up to be polite. So I looked it up here. The largest motherfucker. I'm starting like 3 words. And I start to cough. Fuck! Here it comes again.
We're gonna have to do like the ad-libbing like they do in Chinese like kung fu movies.
I'll just mute him on my end.
Okay. The largest black bear ever caught in Michigan was a black bear killed, motherfucker, by a Michigan resident.
Well, we were talking about
Mark Hanna on the evening of September 25th. Hey, that's 2 days before my birthday of 2019. Hanna bagged a gigantic bruin while hunting in Menominee County in the Upper Peninsula. So that's just like right around the corner from Iron County that I used to grow up in.
Nice.
And what was the weight of that bear?
What was what?
What was the weight of that bear?
Oh, hang on. I gotta look it up.
If you Google North Carolina, it'll tell you the biggest bear killed here was like 890, but it's a lie. I know 2 people that have killed them close to 1,000.
Really?
That's unbelievable.
It's like Boone and Crockett deer. I mean, one of my neighbors has like 30 Boone and Crockett bucks on his wall. Not a single one's in the book. I mean, people do that with bears too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of old timers that have a lot of bucks that no one knows about.
Sure do.
730 pounds it was.
See, that's a huge bear for Michigan. And it's so crazy to think of that. North Carolina. I go down there quite a bit, fishing and everything like that. And I got a good buddy who owns a firearm company down there. So I go down there and visit him and stuff. And I never think of giant black bears in North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
But
you've got to be within an hour of the beach.
Yeah. So he's in Conley.
Yeah. If you're within an hour of the beach, you can find giant black bears. Basically, the way I understand it is this is as far south as like the northern type, genotype, whatever type of bear. There's northern and southern types of bear. This is the farthest south that you'll find like the northern type of bear. And what makes it unique is on the coast, because it never really gets cold, it doesn't snow, and they can just live in the salt marsh and eat like oysters and stuff year round. Low tide, they just walk the beach and smash jellyfish, whatever. And so because they don't have to hibernate, it's the northern bears that don't hibernate, and they just get like to a gargantuan size. Anywhere like in the Outer Banks, you can see bears, like huge bears, their bellies drag in the sand. It's wild.
Man, that's wild.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They call them a coastal black bear is what they're calling it here, what I looked up, and it was 880 pounds is what they're saying.
Yeah, but there's been a lot of them killed bigger than that.
Oh, I'm sure.
If you go down to the bar, you'll have 5 guys show you pictures of
I'm sure.
bears bigger than that.
Man,
If they're getting 880, they're over 1,000. You know what I mean? Like you were saying, it's just they didn't get reported the right way.
Hogzilla was killed in a town called Canita. It's about 10 exits from me, and it was a 900
that thing was huge.
1,000-pound pig.
Yeah, that ended up being like 1050 or something like that, if I remember right. That was a mess. That was taken with a handgun too, wasn't it?
I don't remember, but I know it was only it was just about, it's the next county over.
Yeah.
Man. So how's your season been this year, Brandon? Like we've all we've had our ups and downs for sure.
Well, mine was up, and then it was down and down and down and down and down and down.
Well, welcome to the club. You're on the right podcast.
Yeah. Ironically, thanks for asking. Ironically, I killed one of my top 10 archery bucks of all time this season, and still managed to probably have the worst season of my life. So, go figure. That's how it goes. Usually you have to pay your dues first. Usually you sit through a lot of rainstorms, you walk a lot of miles, you get busted a few times, you strike out, and you pay your dues. And then at some point in November, December, it'll work out. It'll happen. And you'll say, man, that's what I mean. You got to pay your dues. Well, this year was the reverse. Basically, my job screwed me in September. I had 3-day walk-in mature bucks in September. Had plays on those animals, and my job basically screwed me. So I didn't get to hunt in September. Well, October rolled around, and one of my bucks stayed. Actually, he left, and we could probably get into the story later if you guys asked, but he left on schedule. I was expecting him to leave, and he left, but we had a hurricane come through, and on the very backside of that hurricane, I decided to hunt because I had a suspicion that being that shit was about to hit the fan with that storm, he would go back to his bed that he had been using for months. And so I hunted 22 hours in 3 days, and I killed that deer on October 12th, I think.
Man.
And so my season, I think that was my third sit. And so my season started out really, really high, killing a buck that I had 4 years of history with, third sit, big buck. But then from there, I mean, my season just went downhill rapidly. I shot under probably the biggest buck of my life. I thought he was 30 yards and he was 39. Shot under his belly. Yeah. I hate to admit, but I will because I need to face it. I wounded 2 bucks this year and lost them. Both were in the 130 class. And then I moved into an area where I had hunted early in the season because I have a couple of early does there. And so I went back to that area because they had some giant fawns that were hanging around my scrapes. And so I thought, well, maybe these fawns are becoming hot. So I started to focus in on that area, moved a couple of cameras in there, and I got maybe a 125-inch 8-pointer. Man. I played cat and mouse with him. I sat on him for a few times, played cat and mouse with him, got him dialed into where I was missing him by like 8 minutes. So one night he held me hostage in my tree for an hour and a half. He came in literally like right at the buzzer, and I drew on him and I just could not see anything. And so he held me hostage. I could hear him milling around, held me hostage for like an hour and a half. I had to end up peeing, not to be stupid, I ended up peeing my pants a little. Like he just he held me out. I was trying to climb down. I'm like, oh no. So ended up playing cat and mouse with him. Ultimately decided, okay, it's December. I need to go ahead and fill a tag. Brought my rifle in there, had the deer 80 yards, and I had a misfire. It's the only, yeah, I posted a video, click, nothing happened. I racked a shell. He heard me, he took off. And then I played cat and mouse with him for the rest of the season until we got to the last 5 days of the season where I decided just to fill a bunch of doe tags. Man, but my season was a 6 deer season. I maybe sat 15 times, so that sounds good, but it was a really tough season for me, and losing 2 deer was really hard.
Yeah, that sucks. I know we've all had that. I mean, I hit a really nice, unique buck end of October. He had a double brow tines on each side, and thought I had a good hit on him. It was like you said, it was the end of the light. He came in and bedded down at 30 yards in front of me. Dude, I was grunting. I was doing the wheeze snort, everything to try to get him up so I could get a shot. Like the last few minutes of shooting light, he stands up, I shoot him. And I thought it was a good hit. Tracking, looking for him, found him the next day, picked back up blood, fouled, and ended up finding him in the ditch with his head missing. Some hillbillies got him.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, yours was a fucked up situation.
And if you want to see him, Brett, or come on over to my house.
Yeah, just gonna say it.
I was literally thinking the same.
Right
joke.
over there.
I was just gonna say it.
We were all dementally wired the same.
We got to get that DNA test, Dave. I'm telling you.
Dude, brother, I know we're related. I don't give a shit. Dude, there's just something fucking weird about it.
I was about to be like a double brow tine, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I found one just like that.
No kidding, huh? That's a pretty unique buck.
Hey, did he look like this?
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's not him,
right?
Twin brother.
Yeah.
So what you guys? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No,
Brandon.
sorry. Yeah, I was just gonna say good season overall, but wins mostly losses. Sorry, Squatch.
No, I was just gonna stick up for you a little bit there. What you guys don't know, what he's not telling you, is he was hunting with his recurve on some of those deer that he lost, which we all know. Dave and I especially, we've hunted with recurves and getting back into it this year again. I don't know why. I might as well just put my head in a car door and slam it a couple of times. But
well, you got to get back to your roots, buddy.
Yeah,
right.
I know. We're gonna do it, but that's not easy. That's never an easy task, and a lot of guys get it done with the regular bows with these fancy get-ups and sights and everything, and like we do, and that's fine and dandy, but it's a little bit more easier to understand and take when it's a recurve. I mean, we try to do our best and get out there and shoot the best that we can, but sometimes the inevitable happens, and you gave it your all, so and you put down a good buck right off the start, which is really cool. So that says a lot right there. With the sometimes you get the good ones and you get the failures. I had some stuff this year too, so
yeah, I appreciate that. I made a conscious decision to leave out the detail of the recurves or the recurve both times, and the reason why, and thank you for bringing that up, and it's true, but the reason why I did that is because I ultimately thought about it, and I said that I hunted with the bow. I practiced with it for 18 months. I hunted with it last year. I killed a doe and I lost a doe. This year, I shot and lost 2 deer with it. So technically, I've shot 4 deer and lost 3, and that's terrible. I killed, I think, 56 deer in a row with my compound and didn't lose one. So to shoot 4 and lose 3 is terrible. But for me to bring that up, I felt like is a cop-out because I practiced so hard with that bow. I actually tore my shoulder. I practiced an entire season before I hunted with it. I got 45-pound limbs and worked my way up to 60. Like I did everything. So the reason why I left that detail out, and thank you, Squatch, but the reason why I left that detail out is because I genuinely felt proficient with it. And so it doesn't matter if it was a 270 or a recurve. I mean, I botched those kills, and so I own it. I felt proficient with that weapon, and I did it.
No, I just wanted to get it out. I didn't know it was you weren't trying to say anything about it, so I apologize too. But
no, I just don't want to make excuses for myself.
You're not, though. You're not. I would never think that. I would never think that. And we can all relate because we've been there. We understand, and I'm sure people who are listening, they've all been in that same situation. And when you hold yourself to a higher caliber to hunt more primitively, you've got to say, well, I'm proficient. I'm hitting where I need to hit at 20 yards, 30 yards. I'll kill an animal. But you know what? Just like when you draw back with a compound bow, it can happen. And it's not a cop-out. It's not anything. It's not making an excuse. I mean, everybody has a bad day. And sometimes it comes in 2s and 3s, But the biggest thing is you recovered. You got back out. You killed some deer, and that's what's great about it. You made a season out of it. Some guys just throw in the towel and say, "Screw it, it ain't for me," and they take up golf. So
yeah, You always got golf.
Yeah.
Golf and Subarus.
Yeah.
I hate golf. I'm a fisherman. I'm ready for some giant catfish.
Thank God.
I'm
See, now I
waiting
even
for the
like you
lake.
that much more. Yeah.
To join you.
We're waiting for the lakes to freeze here so we can get ice fishing going.
Yeah, hell yeah.
To join you guys all in cussing. This fucking deer season is behind me. So,
Dude, hey, fucking men, brother.
I like have PTSD from this season. I don't like losing deer. I mean, I looked for one deer for 9 hours. I had an infrared. I don't like losing deer. I take it real personal.
Yeah, me too. I don't like it at all, man.
It's definitely
if you're a true hunter, you will take it personal.
Yeah.
There's just no way around it, you know.
I mean, as all of us, I can speak for all of us, except for the guy with the golf club over.
You mean Happy Gilmore?
But
yeah, Bobin
no,
Woods.
Even him too. No, you guys know we're so critiquing of ourselves, and every little thing that we do, we're under our own microscope, and we like to make sure we're 110%. And when you're confident in that 110%, and you go out and you pull a 50%er, it really strains on you. Yeah. And I'll tell you, man, over the years, it's really like you're saying, PTSD and stuff. I've had it really affect me a bunch of times where I just had to step back and say, okay, you know what? Don't live on it. Just get over it and start moving forward again. Because, you know, even like when you're drawing back and stuff, I mean, the other day there, when I shot that one doe with the muzzleloader, when I pulled up, I was a little bit forward on her shoulder. And I was like, nah, I was like, chill out, let it just take your time a little bit more. And then I touched it off and, you know, she went down. So it was a good hit. But, you know, if I didn't, it could have been a little forward. It could have been a problem. But, you know, you're checking yourself. You got that checks and balances, you know, and from the mistakes, that's where you get better. And you know, as much as a seasoned veteran as we all are in the years that we got in and doing our thing, it's one of those situations that we all have to deal with. And sometimes, man, you'll just kill it, you know? Yes, Mr.
They always say if your girl dumps you, then you got to go find a new girl real quick, even if it's just for the weekend.
Exactly.
I think that's a lot easier than dealing with a missed when you got a wounded nice buck.
Yeah, it is.
You know, honestly.
So
that's how I felt at the end of the season. I killed 4 does right at the buzzer, and so I felt like I kind of, I don't know, I redeemed something. Yeah, I got a lot of confidence back now. So,
is your season over there in North Carolina?
It is. I could drive 45 minutes and hunt South Carolina, but I'm exhausted from it. I'm done.
Wherever he is, he's got his hand up.
That's Brett.
Yeah, I'm over it. So South Carolina, check this out. Rifle opens August 15th.
August
15th, rifle opens, and it runs through February, and you get 5 buck tags.
Holy Christ!
In South Carolina?
Mm-hmm. 45 minutes up the road.
Dude, that's what my kid was talking about when he was here. Because he's over in Camp Lejeune right now. He just went back. He was talking about that this hunting season there is just crazy compared to here.
6 months to shoot bucks. That's wild. Yes, Brett.
Yeah, we got to recognize the host.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Now the host is John.
Yeah, it is. Tonight's John. Fuck, I can't say word.
I'll be honest, you guys are frozen so often that I can't tell.
Oh, man. So everyone that should know, when I was in high school, I was a quarterback. And one thing that was taught to me was you have to have a short-term memory. And so basically you had if I threw an interception, which I threw 6 of them.
It's that first game.
You had to adapt with it and overcome it and just basically fucking forget about it. I know, just like you guys, I've had shots where I shot a deer and now I can never find the deer and it was just a bad shot and I just fucking hate myself and want to just go take my gun and just go off myself because I'm terrible at it. You have to be able to learn from what you did and be able to accept it and move on. You can't just dwell about it. And how I look at it, situations where I made a bad shot and I couldn't find a deer, where I look at it, if I took a shot on a Wednesday and I didn't find that deer and I made a bad shot, and I'm going out Friday, I have Thursday to suck about it. And then Friday, it's like, all right, I can't do anything about it. Move the fuck on. And then at the end of the season, I can start to reevaluate what the fuck happened that last time and stuff like that. if that makes sense. I'm trying to say words without saying a whole bunch of words without coughing.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
You got to just jump right back into it. I mean, I've wounded a deer in the morning and then killed one in the afternoon. Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, you got to be able to just kind of like adapt from it and overcome, and just like you can't just dwell about it and just because then you're just going to sit there and hate life even more at that point. It's like you can't do anything about it now. It's done and over the facts. So it's like,
and to get away from the psychology of it and into like the hunting side of it, I mean, that applies in the field too. I mean, one of the things I preach a lot is having options. You know, for me, I've got to have a lot of bucks going into the season. If I don't have at least like 15 bucks daylighting, I'll have a panic attack because it takes me a lot of bucks to kill a couple. So whenever like you wound one or you miss one or you get busted in the tree or whatever it may be, it's really important for me to be able to just move to another buck. And having options, because I know that I'm going to do that probably 6, 7, 8 times in a year. Not wound one, but obviously that was a very much of a fluke for me. But I mean, as far as getting busted or walking in a little late or something, you know, and then I'll move to the next deer, and I won't get hung up on a single buck. So it applies like psychologically, you know, you got to get back out in the field and do it, but also technically, I mean, you've got to just move to another deer and get it done. Go to another thicket.
Bitterroot Institute commented here. It happens to us all eventually. Best you can do is review shot and make the adjustment next time.
Yep.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, I'm selling my recurve, but
right?
I get the
Well, that was the first step.
I get the
Review your
sentiment,
shot.
but
And the guy that made that post, he's actually going to be a guest on the show soon.
Yeah, that's
Perfect. Cool. Yeah.
I'm
what type of recurve do you shoot, Brandon?
I've got a Hoyt Satori with 65-pound limbs.
Nice.
Good bow.
Yeah, it's a decent bow. I like it. I'm gonna sell it if anybody's interested. I mean, I'll sell it for, you know, a reasonable price. I've got a custom quiver, trad bow TV or whatever. Gun sheet. They sent me a quiver and it's got a nice quiver on it. It's a really great deal, but I'm done with the trad bow hunt. Nothing against it. I just, it's not an effective weapon for me. It's just so I'm going to get away from the trad bow, but I was happy. I'm 4 for 4 again now with my compound. I ended the season with 4 does in a row. So
now, do you shoot
I'm back on track.
Hang on real quick. I'm all about promoting everyone's pages and shit like that. But if you motherfucker start promoting selling shit on my channel, I'm gonna come down there and fuck your shit up.
Me?
Yeah, don't you start selling your own shit on my channel.
Oh shit! Well,
our channel.
Hey, what do you got for sale?
Yeah,
that's funny.
When the show ends, we'll continue.
Wait a minute.
Let me clarify. I'm an old guy and I don't sell anything. I'm a pack rat, so.
Wait
a minute. You guys got it split at 60-40, man. Then Brett will leave you alone. It's like a mafia thing. Yeah.
Wait, are you guys getting a divorce too? Is that why it's 60-40?
I got a whole closet full of scopes I've been selling for 20 years. I don't get rid of anything.
I don't either.
No. Too funny.
So now, hunting North Carolina, is that a lot of pines that you're hunting out of, or?
Yeah. So the majority of our state is pines. We've got millions of acres of public land, but it's millions of acres of pines. The thing is you can find pockets of diversity. Sorry, Brett. Go ahead.
No, you're good. I was just going to ask, with the season basically ending, shed fucking words, I swear to God.
Shed hunting
season. Just go with that. I'm going to start coughing up a storm.
I'll segue into that. So it's the majority of the foliage here is pines, but you can use that to your advantage. So it depends on the age of the pines. For example, I mean, if you have 10,000 acres of open pines and maybe 1,200 acres of really immature pines, the deer are going to congregate into those areas in the daytime.
Oh yeah.
I mean, one thing I really push hard is to focus on primary bedding areas, and to know the different types of bedding areas. But I focus hard on primary bedding areas, and like your pine thickets here, if they're immature pines, you know, 6 to 10 years old, they can be really, really great hunting, especially if they have a lot of greenbrier and stuff like that in them. with that being said, I do try to focus in on diversity. One thing I key in really heavily on is storm damage, specifically along creeks where the water just levels, maybe 30, 40 acres on an oxbow of a creek. And I've had a lot of success there in those types of areas where it almost replicates like a clear cut. You just kind of get everything growing up in those areas. And then also we have a lot of creek systems, and along the creeks is where you can find different types of oak trees and maples and things like that. So when we get all the hurricanes we get here in North Carolina, those creeks will swell, a lot of your oak tree stuff fall over. It's almost like nature doing hinge cuts for you. So you can find these pockets along these creeks where it's just absolutely incredible. And that'll be adjacent to, 7,500 acres of just standing pines, and the deer will just be in there all day. Unless you booger it up, it'll be really good hunting. And I'll use water access a lot. I post a lot of videos where I'm in my chest waders because I just walk the creeks. They're shallow here, and I'll leave my waders on the bank and hunt right on the bank. And it's almost like taking like a little picture inside a bedding area where like they don't even know you're there. And as long as you don't walk around in there, it's like you go in, you hunt all day. I'll hunt all day, even early season September. And I'll get in there before daylight, watch everything all day, wait till dark. They go to ag, I climb down, I leave. It's like I was never there. And, and I'll hunt a lot that way along those creeks. But as far as shed hunting, it's a tough bracket here. I found the magnolia buck that I killed this year. I found one side of his shed last year, and that was after 4 years of history with a deer. So shed hunting here is a tough bracket because normally you're looking for sheds where there's food, and the problem here is last year I was posting pictures of bucks in April with horns still. I mean, no lie, I think my last buck picture last year was a nice 8-point. It was April 4th, and he still had his rack. So, we have a wide rut here, a trickle rut that, January, end of December, Christmas is peak rut, I guess if you want to call peak rut, but it starts as early as September, late September, and then we have breeding activity all the way through February. And that's why like South Carolina season's open so late. You still have bucks chasing does there. And so they hold their horns as long as they need testosterone to breed, and that breeding can happen through February. And so it's not uncommon to have bucks hold their horns into March and April. And so when that happens, the food is changing so much in those times, it's really hard to pinpoint where you're going to find that rack. There's no snow to follow deer tracks. There's no snow to look for sheds. You've got to figure out what they're eating at that time. And, usually it's going to be where there's really heavy concentrations of greenbrier. That's the only place I find sheds. So, but I'm generally scouting out those areas as primary bedding areas anyway. That's why I'm looking for greenbrier, and I'll just happen to find sheds by stepping on them. I'm notoriously bad at it, but and I'm guessing that February, March time frame, there's probably not much else to eat but greenbrier. So if you're shed hunting here, I'd say, find some greenbrier and maybe you'll find a horn, but it's tough going. It's not like Wisconsin, where you can walk the edge of a cornfield and you see them laying everywhere.
We're already losing sheds here. Our deers are already, our bucks are already dropping their antlers here.
Starting here, yeah.
That's how it was in the Adirondacks too. They would drop them by Valentine's Day every year.
I think one of the main reasons why they're dropping so early here in Michigan, at least, is because the EHD.
It could be, any kind of stress.
Hard. I mean, I probably had 4 or 5 deer that were 180s and higher. I had one that was probably close to 200, and he had a perfect 10 on one side, and then the other one just went straight out and then up, like he had got hit by a car or something the year before, and it was all crazy.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Sometimes happens with age too. He could have been 7 or 8. I mean, I think sometimes people underestimate deer age.
Yeah.
I've
And
got one doe that's 16. That's why I say that, because I think people underestimate deer age.
there is
Oh
a
yeah, definitely.
doe.
I
She's
think
verified 16.
oh, they get caught up on looking at the antlers, and they're like, "Oh, that's
Oh,
a
yeah.
4-year-old, 6-year-old."
Yeah. Instead of the
What was
body
it?
and
On Doe Patrol, they shot one of the guys on their shot. I think it was either 20 or 21-year-old doe.
I thought it was
Yeah.
23.
It may have
23.
been 23. Yeah.
23 sticks in my head for some reason when I read
think
it.
it
Yeah.
might have been a 23-year. But
yeah, she had dentures.
yeah, no kidding. But I
Yeah.
was like, man,
They were so nice. They even mounted her with the walker she was using.
Yeah.
right.
You can tell because they get a long, droopy, like spaghetti noodle
Spaghetti.
type neck.
Oh
Yep.
yeah.
And then also the veins in their face become really distinguished, almost like in an old person's arms.
Yep.
So like my 16-year-old has like a droopy, long ass neck, and then she's got a long snout with like veins sticking out. Like you can
Yep.
tell, like she's
Oh,
ancient.
yeah.
Hey, Brandon, can
Ready
you
to
real
go.
quick? Can you real quick for someone that might not know how to age a deer correctly, from like 1-year-old to like 10-year-old, what to look for?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a biologist. I just want to open with that. But what I look for is it's a kind of a loaded question, because I actually push aging fawns, and that's a completely separate wormhole that we won't go down. But that involves the tape measure. If you're trying to dial in your estrus timing on a particular piece of land, especially here in the South, where you could be having breeding activity happening in October, or it could be happening in January. And so you need to know, if you're in Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, you need to know when it's happening. So you can use a tape measure on your fawn tracks, and you can figure out how old they are, and you can kind of get an idea for your estrus timing. But that's not what you're talking about. You're talking about like buck age.
Mm-hmm.
And how I generally age does are difficult animals to age. You really need to have some good historical data. I like to know when they're either born, that they belong to a part of a doe group. If you're familiar with the deer in a doe group and the social hierarchy, you know deer and how old they are. But if you meet a doe for the first time, it's really difficult. One thing you can do, first thing I start doing on every piece of land, is I start measuring deer tracks. So generally I have a baseline right off the bat for a doe track. It's the first thing I do. So if I know my baseline for a doe track is 2 inches wide, and I'm finding one that's 2 1/8, 2 1/4, she's probably an older doe. So right off the bat, I'm looking at her track. But moreover, the physical tells from the long neck, the long face. But when a doe gets past 6 years old, it becomes extremely difficult to tell if she's 6 or if she's 16. That's been my experience. One way you can tell is by their fawning. Generally, around the 2nd year, they start having twins, sometimes triples, but generally they'll start having twins on the 2nd year, and they'll have twins up until about the time they're 8. Then they'll start having single fawns. That's been my observation. So if you start seeing a doe that is older than 6 based on those observations, and she's having single fawns, she's probably 9, 10, 11, 12. She's probably more older than, that's been an observation that I've made through tracking and through running 100 trail cameras for a bunch of seasons. With bucks, it's a little bit different. So you've got to kind of, you've got to know your deer in your area. I mean, here in the Carolinas, pretty much all bucks start out as spike horns. So as a fawn, you expect a deer to be a button horn. As a 1-year-old yearling, you expect them to be a spike horn here. If a 2-year-old here is generally like a 4-point, a 6-point, it takes a 3-year-old deer here to hit 100 inches to make a nice basket rack. That's the Carolinas. We have really poor soil and poor habitat, so we don't have Pope and Young 3-year-olds. So generally at 1 and 2, your deer are still kind of shaped like a torpedo. If you were to cut that deer in half with a guillotine, you'd see that the front half is very visibly lighter than the back half. He's 1 or 2, depending on if he's a spike or not. Then you start getting into 3 and 4, and it can become hard. But at 3, I find that if you cut them in half, both halves weigh about the same.
Right.
And that's how I'll say, okay, he's 3. And then at 4, what I find is if you cut them in half, they look more chesty. They got a big chest. They are visibly more heavy in the front. They're all chest, they're all neck, Even when they're not swollen, they look chesty when you cut them in half. And then at 5, I find that they start getting a saggy back and a pregnant pot belly.
Yep.
And then at 6, usually they'll start growing like little kickers and stickers. And then I don't know. After that, it's anybody's gamble until they hit 8 or 9, where you start getting like the droopiness and that sort of stuff. And I've got a 10-year-old in a basket here that's like that way. He's all like, he looks like candle wax that's like melted because he was 10. And so after 6, you know, as soon as you start seeing kickers and stickers, it's really hard. In that big droopy back, it's really hard to tell if he's 6.5. So, and when you get out west, where you have these crazy genetics in these states with these deer farms like Ohio, where, you know, deer have been getting out for years and years and years, 3-year-olds can have kickers and stickers.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
So you really got to look at the body size. But your Midwest deer, you know, they get the big swollen necks and they're already a little bit thicker, and so it's really, really hard to tell like a Wisconsin 3-year-old from a Wisconsin 4-year-old. That can be, you got to have history with the animal really at that point. But here in the Carolinas, you know, pretty much all bucks start out as a spike. I keep this on my desk as a talking point because in my area, if you can find a yearling 1-year-old that looks like this, which was that is extremely rare, and that ended up being the same drainage I killed the Magnolia buck in this year, and he was 17 points. And so usually you see yearlings like this in Kansas, right? Like everything here is a spike. So I do keep an eye on my yearling deer, because sometimes when you're expecting a spike and they show up like this, it's like, okay, grandpa's probably a 12.
Yep.
But that's rare. It's very rare here. So I walk a lot of miles to find genetics and to find diversity and to find, you know, deer worth hunting, because you can, you know, hunt a lot of farms and not find a very good deer here. I mean, we go out spotlighting my entire county, and in a night we won't even see a 150 in the whole county. So it's tough going here, but that's why I run a lot of cameras and I'm forced to hunt specific deer. But you know, we get it done.
Now, if I can interrupt you for a second, I just got a question. Those bucks that you're finding with the that aren't a spike typically in the beginning, and like that Magnolia buck that you shot this year, is it just something that maybe they're eating something different that's giving them that mineral boost, or is it just genetics in their history? Is it, you know, or is it a combination of both? I mean, I know in Long Island there's monsters. I mean, there's over, you know, 200-inch deer down on Long Island. You would never think Long Island would have big bucks, but being that the saltwater's there and they're close to the ocean, they get the mineral that builds their racks like crazy. So, you know, I'm just wondering, maybe because, you know, like the coastal black bears you have there get huge from, like you said, they eat oysters and stuff like that. Are the deer that you have that are getting that boost, are they eating a certain mineral maybe, and that's what you concentrate on to look for them as a food source when you go after them?
Yes and yes. So if you take the Boone and Crockett map of all time, and it has the map of the United States, and it highlights where the concentrations of Boone and Crockett entries come from.
Yeah.
And I did a video recently where I took that and I overlaid it with the United States agricultural soybean map, and where all the concentrations of soybeans are. The Boone and Crockett map lines up exactly perfect with the soybean map. No shit. Like when we get done here, look it up. Like they line up perfectly. You know, soybeans equal big deer. Everybody knows it. And we have a lot of areas here with soybeans. Unfortunately, I don't get to hunt many of them, or when I do, it's very limited. Like I'll get in a spot for a year and then someone will lease it out from under me. It's very rare, but if you can find soybeans, you can find Boone and Crockett deer, period. Yep. With that being said, I find that it's not what they're eating, it's if they're eating. So where I find deer that reach their potential, it being like generally an 8-point or a 10-point, depending on the genetics. Meaning they're not a 5-year-old 4-point, or they're not a 5-year-old 6-point, which is what you get here a lot.
Yeah.
So because they're genetically deprived, the does are starving most of their lives. I mean, a lot of the times here, if you're in like an area with a lot of pines, and let's say there's 10,000 acres of tobacco on one area, and on the other side of those pines, there's 10,000 acres of cotton. There's no agriculture. There's no food. The does are starving their entire lives. And those are the areas where it's sandy, loomy soil. There's no agriculture. And those are the areas where you'll see an ancient 6-pointer. He'll be, have 6-inch bases, and he'll be a 6-pointer, because those areas, they're nutritionally deprived, which causes them, in my opinion, to be genetically deprived. But if you can get into areas where there's year-round nutrition for your does across several years, like reforestation. North Carolina has a lot of reforestation with like clear cuts. And if you can get on those 7 and 8-year-old clear cuts where those does have had that browse for 7 or 8 years, and it's allowed them to start having fawns that aren't limited, those areas are where you'll start seeing your 8 and your 10-point bucks generally. So if you can get into those creek systems with diversity where they've been diverse for a while, if you can get in soybeans, if you can get in around clear cuts, places where those does have had year-round generational nutrition for like 4 seasons, they're kicking out bucks that will make it to that 8 or 10-point mark. If you see a buck spotlighting and he's an 8-point and he's like Pope and Young, his mother was fed really well year-round. That's just a fact here. So with that being said, then the reason why the Magnolia buck he was 20 points, but he had 3 broken off. It was 17. And the reason why he got that way is because I suck. It took me 4 years to kill him. So, if you don't kill these deer, they will do that. So he was an 8-point. I mean, he was 125, 130-inch 8-point frame. And that's what he was last year. He had a couple little stickers. He just had like these 5.5-inch bases, but he was pretty much like 130-inch 8-point. And so, but yeah, if you don't kill them, they'll grow all kinds of crap on them. Which is what happened to him. I just took too long to kill him, so he got gnarly. But generally here, to answer your question, it's just if the does are eating year-round, so that makes a big difference. And then states like in Ohio, where they bait a lot, those does have access to feeders. And today people are feeding protein pellets and stuff. And I'm telling you right now, I don't care what state you're in, if you put a doe on protein pellets, she will produce Boone and Crockett deer.
Booners. Yep.
Well,
you guys can't do that, can you?
Not till season 3 or season 4. But you can take a regular dirty old ghetto street doe that produces,
Michigan doe,
that produces 5-year-old crotch horns, and you can put her on protein pellets for like 3-4 seasons, and she will turn out booners.
And
it'll unlock everything that was locked away.
And I get that a lot, misconceptions that a lot of people think it's the buck.
Yeah, I don't find it's the buck. I think that because and the reason I say that is because I've hunted so many places that were soybeans, and then they went to cotton, or then they went to tobacco. And those years to follow, those bucks that were born from those does are still the bucks that they are. And I'll see them maybe have a little less of a rack because there's not as good of a food, but they're still 125-inch deer. Maybe they could have been 135 with soybeans, but they're still the same deer. Like, I don't think food affects a buck as much. Like, I think their future is determined when they're born.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Food maybe gives them 20 inches either way.
Yeah, but I agree. I think because their gestation periods in their in the doe, she's the one that's starting basically the get-go. If she's not eating well, that buck's not going to do well.
Also, like we were discussing too, with the different times they're born. If a fawn is born in a harder time in a cold winter, because, or not cold winter, but I mean later on or earlier on, I should say, it's going to affect the food that they're introduced to and how much time before that season opens, and every area opens different. Like you were saying, they open in September, some open in
Yeah,
So,
and if that fawn's a buck, who cares? His future's been written the minute he was born.
exactly.
But if that fawn is a doe and she's starving on her first leg of life, now she's already started a cycle where her genes are starting to go into survival mode, and her future bucks don't. Their physical appearance is based on their livelihood, and so like where deer eat really well, they can afford they know next year's fawns can afford to have a big rack. But when you start starving your does, her future offspring will start having smaller racks, smaller bodies. They like adapt to kind of. That's what I've seen. I mean, I'm not a biologist, but that's what I've seen. Across 12,000 videos of deer that I have.
No, I think you're right, or you're on it, because I see the same thing.
Bitterroot Institute.
The areas where the does don't eat good, you don't see big bucks.
And I've seen it turn off. It doesn't turn off in one season. It takes like two. But when those places that are beans, and they go to cotton, and it's like, oof, okay, well, she still has good fawns that year. And then the second, like, they still end up being their potential 8 points, 10 points. But then the next year, let's say it goes to tobacco. The second fawns will generally be a little lesser. They won't be like they'll be. Maybe she was having 4 point and 6 point yearlings. That second they'll be spikes.
The Bitterroot Institute. I'll help you out, Brett, because I know you're going to cough and stuff. He had a comment. The same thing with mule deer. The health of the doe going into the winter determines the size of the fawn and potential growth, even with good genetics. Yeah, I mean, it's like like we've been saying, like the big guy over my shoulder, he was 7.5. I watched him, like you said, I wasn't good enough to get him a year or two before, and I was lucky enough to get him. But after I killed him, he's got 5.5-inch bases, and he carries his mass through his horns. I figured him at maybe 6. When they aged him, he was 7.5 through his teeth. And for here, where I am, because everybody just shoots anything that moves, that was pretty cool that buck made it that long.
Oh man, yeah.
We just had a woman that's in our hunting group, Meg. She shot 8. It was 8.5. Monster with this big droopy one side that came down, and he was like a big mainframe on the other side. It was a beautiful buck she got, and she just got the results back. It was 8.5, and that's in Jersey. Go figure. So, it's genetics. Like one of the things I'll bring up too, like that buck, he's a dark horn buck, and we got into discussing like where he bedded. He stayed more in the shadows. He didn't bleach his rack out, staying somewhere in a field that he could see around. And he rubbed a lot of pines, so the pine sap darkened the rack also with that happening. But the genetics out by me is so much different. I mean, we've got apple orchards, great food. You got freaking oaks, white oak, red oak. I mean, we got hickory nuts. These guys, when you get a good crop of nuts that are falling on the ground, they'll hyperventilate. They walk around so much just eating their way through the woods. And that's what makes, they got to have, of course, the genetics. They got to have that. I'm going to be an 8-pointer like my father, or I got to be a 10-pointer.
Yeah.
The places that I hunt, there's been some 10s taken, but for the majority of the dominant gene in that area, they're mainframe 8s. And I'm telling you, I've seen some, 160s, 170s, and just total mass. And then I've had these guys that are like big, wide monsters. You can take the whole palm of your hand and just cradle it between their base and each side of the rack. And you get that carpet, that red carpet, I call it, like the curly hair in between the racks. And, that's just an old buck, when you see them like that. But up here is different. New York is different. There's a lot of food. There's a lot of farms. And, up here by me, they're cutting down. They're fencing the apple orchards in. So where I hunt, it's kind of cool, but it is taking a little bit away from the nutrition side of it. But there's definitely some good deer. And like you said, if you hunted up here, Reaper, I'm telling you, you'd be shooting monsters every freaking week, because
I killed some good bucks in New York.
I know.
I know down where you're at, there's some really big deer.
Right, but with the knowledge that you have and the stuff that I've learned from you, just knowing you for the last couple of years, impressed the hell out of me. I mean, I consider myself a pretty knowledgeable guy, but you've got the scientific end of it down, and it really makes sense. A lot of the stuff that I've seen, I haven't put two and two together. And when you talk about it, I go, oh yeah, I have seen that, and it's like, you go, that's pretty cool, and you've taken the time, like you said, with the hundreds of camera that you have out and doing the data back on the fawns. It's just incredible. And, for the longest time, I always told people here, there's 3 breeding seasons here. I've seen it. I've watched it. And this year here, when we had that full moon rising, it was like October 11th, 12th, and it got super cold. We got a real bad cold snap. That is
I came up there to lake trout fish in June. And there was a pregnant doe.
Yes,
she tried to cross the highway and her stomach was hanging.
Yep.
I mean, I know a pregnant doe. That's what I do.
I showed you that
she was bulgy. I mean, she could barely. Her rib cage looked like it was going to break as she was trying to cross the road in front of me. And it was June. You tell people you've seen a pregnant doe at the end of June in New York, and they'd say, "Oh, no way!" They get their fawns. But I saw a pregnant doe in August in Jersey.
Yeah, I showed you that picture I had of a buck I was calling Clyde here. He mounted that doe, and his tail was cupped. And, I mean, he was trying to breed that doe, and that was like June. And I'm like, what in the hell? And the other buck's just standing there, like, looking at him, like, it's not the time of year for this guy, It's like
tail cupping is something I started talking about a few years ago. I saw that, and I don't know how many people were talking about that, but it's a huge tell that they're horny. If you see a buck tail cupping or even a doe, that's a pretty good tell.
Yep.
That's why I went over to that spot and picked up that buck, because both of those fawns were in my scrape tail cupping.
Yeah.
They were both probably 80 pounds. So I went over there and hung a couple cameras, and sure enough.
Well, it's a good thing I don't have a tail.
Yeah, I'd always be cupped.
Right.
Every time I see Squatch, look at my tail's cupped too.
That's funny.
You look like a bobcat.
Yeah.
But you're right about genetics, man, because I have spots where I've killed 10 8-pointers over 125 inches, and you will never see a 10-point in that spot. I do not care. I'll bet you $1 million. But I have another spot where I've killed 3 10-pointers, mirror images of each other, and I never see an 8-point in that drainage. So genetics play a role. Like, I mean, bucks, you're not going to make a 10-point out of an 8-point. I mean, they are what they, in that regard.
Yeah.
I have drainages that are 8-point drainages, and I have drainages that are 10-point drainages. I mean, they're not. Sometimes you see a mix, you'll catch one of each on a scrape, but I have a couple scrapes where I get 8s and 10s. But it's also the case, especially in ag country, where you got little tiny pockets of woods where you'll just see one section and they just have a 10-point genetic.
And now, do you make your own scrapes, Brandon, or?
Yes.
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, now, I like to use them. I use a natural vine almost always.
Okay.
But I've experimented with a bunch of different things. But yeah, I use a natural vine, and I make my own scrapes. I don't believe in using any kind of lure. I feel like it contaminates my historical data if I lure deer. But I definitely use mock scrapes.
Okay, because I know Dave and Squatch use mock scrapes, and this is the first year that I tried.
Yeah.
And dude, first year trying, you know how it is. I butchered it, man. I was like, oh, I'm going to use this and this and this, and it worked great. And yeah, I got nothing.
I think that mock scrapes are, I think they're fun. I think that they can really get a hunter involved in hunting. I mean, when you make a scrape and you start seeing big deer, I think that it can build the enthusiasm. So I think that they're good for hunting because they're fun. But I think that if you don't use a scrape, my opinion, and Dave will tell you, I mean, he knows I've badgered him for 3 years now, but my opinion is if you don't use a scrape properly, you're hurting yourself. And so
absolutely,
you will never see me add any kind of lure or scent to my scrapes. With that being said, my scrapes, if I say scrape, I only get 90% daytime pictures. I do not get nighttime pictures on my scrapes. My scrapes are daytime scrapes, and they're 7 days a week. They're primary bedding scrapes. Okay. I don't add scent to them. And that, I believe, is why my scrapes are effective. because I'm not luring deer. So my historical data is data that's clean versus if you lure a deer across the cornfield with some buck fever, you spray it on there and he comes across the cornfield and he hits your scrape. And then you're like, oh boy, October 30th next year, you lured that deer. You may as well pour corn out. So
exactly.
The way that I use scrapes is by finding deer in their natural daytime environment, hitting my scrapes at natural locations.
Just keeping it simple.
And then those scrapes are sustainable and they're self-refreshing. And that data, when those deer use those scrapes at certain times, that data is often repeatable year to year because you're not skewing it by adding lure. And let's say, when you pull that buck across that cattail marsh because you added something to a scrape, that may not be a repeatable endeavor.
That's just a one-time thing.
I'm hunting the repeatable endeavor.
Okay.
So I'm not trying to lure deer, and that's why I don't. And that's a whole wormhole, but
and I think that's what a lot of I don't want to call it this generation's hunters, but this whole social media world of hunters who will log on to YouTube and see these people shooting 180s, 190s, 200 plus deer. Oh, well, I got to make a mock scrape. I have to lure them in. Lure being the key word.
It works. I mean, I posted a video. I made a doe at 2:00 in the morning roll on my sidewalk I dumped out some old buck fever. I dumped it on the sidewalk and I hung a camera and at like 2 in the morning I had a doe rolling it. So that shit lures deer. It works. I've put stuff out. It's pulled. Now I don't think you're gonna pull a 5-year-old in with some tinks. I mean,
no, absolutely, yeah.
When you got like a 2-year-old zombie doing his zombie loop around the woods, you'll catch him.
Yeah.
But when it comes to forehead gland, interdigital and stuff, it works. It'll pull deer.
Yes, Brett,
our host.
Thank you, host. I just want to point out though that like me, I like to do nothing out in the woods. Like I'm a lazy.
You can tell.
No, I don't go out. I don't go there.
I don't go to the woods. I don't live near the woods.
These deer are lucky I wear pants.
I'm in the city.
Brett's the only hunter that's got a mock scrape in his bedroom.
That's right.
Well, here's the other thing. I run 50 scrapes. You know how much money that would cost me if I was putting interdigital and forehead and
pre-orbital
and all that. I mean, Jesus Christ.
I just want to point out though that you can have a successful year, and the successful is ambiguous, meaning like it's all based on each person's opinion on success. But you can have a successful season not doing anything. What I mean by that is I don't do mock scrapes. I don't do that. What I do, my hunting style is it's wit versus wit. I am looking where I can find the deer at, finding where their traveling corridors are at and stuff like that, and putting up a stand. And that's all I'm doing.
That's also called luck.
Well, there's link on luck about it too. It's like, fuck, I'm in a lucky spot. So I think, and you just have general common knowledge though of your land.
The best part about hunting is everybody can make their own approach, and
everyone can do their own thing.
As serious as you want to make it, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's all depending on how you want to do your own hunting setup. Don't think you have to do one thing. The point of what I was trying to get with that is you don't have to do one thing to be successful. You can have a variety of different ways of how you want to set your own hunting success.
Hunting has levels, and my sister's a good example. I mean, she doesn't want to take the time, God love her. She doesn't want to take the time to learn anything about hunting, but she just wants to put her ground blind in a place that's pretty. And she wants to sit there with her 270 and shoot a doe. It hasn't happened in a couple of years, and it will eventually, and she's happy with that just to read a good book. And depends on your technique. The nice thing about hunting is, guys, everybody, if you talk to 10 guys, they'll have 10 different,
Exactly.
I hunt beds, I hunt scrapes, I hunt food, it's like
I hunt with a gun.
Yeah, they have.
They lay in a deer bed.
Yeah, but what I will say though is hunting does have levels, and and there is a path to being really efficient. If you're in a state where you get a lot of tags, $5 tags, $7 tags like we get in the South, you can't take 10 cents to kill a deer. And so it's really imperative that you hunt the right places at the right time and that you do your homework, because if you're sitting on one farm and those does are all pregnant, it's November 1st, and across the road, that's where all the big bucks are tripping your camera. It doesn't do you any good. So you're not going to kill anything on that side of the road. So you've got to hunt the right place at the right time. And the further north you go, the less imperative that is. You get into more concentrated ruts. Upper UP in Michigan, Adirondacks, Maine, places like that, upstate New York, you get into more of a concentrated rut, and you can, get on terrain features and food and things like that. But in the South, you need to hunt the right place at the right time. And if you want to fill a lot of tags quick, just to walk in. And back to the point where I said I spotlighted my entire county and didn't find a 150. What if I knocked on 10 doors and all 10 farms said, yeah, you can hunt? I'm going to go hunt those 10 farms. I mean, there's no bucks. So like, you can't just walk in the woods here. Like you'll be a very sad story. So you really got to do your homework here where there's not a lot of good bucks. You've got to find the genetics, you got to find good deer, and you've got to, find where they're living and do your homework. And then moreover, you've got to make sure you're hunting the right spots at the right time. And while I did have a bad season because I wounded a couple of deer and I missed a deer and this and that, but I had an encounter with 7 bucks that were all over 125 inches. And the reason for that is because I was hunting the right place at the right time in the South. That just walking in the woods in November like you do in the Adirondacks doesn't work here. And I think anybody who's listening that's from the South understands, like, you got to do your homework and figure out where to be, because one side of the highway, right where I hunt, one side of the highway has April fawns and the other side of the highway has July 15th fawns. And so that breeding activity is happening at 2 different times.
Exactly. And I used to hunt the Adirondacks as well, batch 2005 to 10-ish area. So, and it's the same thing. You just drive up and down the road on the highway that we were at, and you'd see tracks going, the tracks are going this way. You get off and pretty much follow them, just like you would hunting whitetail in the Northeast anyways. And it's a completely different strategy on hunting than what we do here in Michigan, where I'm a mobile I'm a mobile hunter. I'll hunt saddles and find a good spot, climb up. Where in the Northeast, when I was stationed up there, it was drive around, find tracks, beat the trail, find them, and hunt them that way. Mm-hmm. So it's completely different. And then talking North Carolina hunting, each area is just completely different to hunt.
If you wanna, right, exactly. But if you want to have a guaranteed encounter in your first or second sit with your animal, then you've got to do your legwork.
You have to, absolutely. Yes, Brett.
I do have 5 questions that I would try and suffer through and ask.
Should we ask them for you?
No, someone else is going to handle that part. This is something different. This is for everybody. What animal's manure is known to spontaneously combust?
Cow.
Yeah.
Okay. They're not rocket science questions I'm going to be asking. There's only 5.
Well, we're window lickers, so we're all right.
What unusual event takes place annually in the town of Coopers Hill, England?
The cheese rolling.
Holy fuck. John, did you say that?
Yeah, that was me.
The power of bourbon. Oh, God.
Irish whiskey. Yeah.
Thanks, Nat Geo.
Exactly, brother.
I really didn't think no one would get that. Holy
Come
shit.
on, man. We all went to public school, but you're giving us not enough credit.
Yeah, I know. What the fuck, man?
What surprising item does the Monopoly man not actually wear, contrary to popular belief?
Shirt.
The monocle.
Mm.
What animal has a rectangle pupil?
Oh, antelope.
A goat.
There we go.
I thought the Monopoly man was like Putin, just shirtless.
Pretty much. Duh.
Last one. What unusual thing can a chicken do after its head has been cut off?
Oh, run around.
Still run
Continue to
around.
run around.
Talk.
Yeah, that's the answer.
Yeah, we know. Sorry.
They make a big mess.
That's why you put them in a cone and hack their head off.
That's right.
Yeah, but the only reason you do the cone is because you learn the hard way.
Well,
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody stop that chicken. He's all the way across the backyard. Up the
Holy
dog got
shit!
him.
You guys just see that? Next time we need a cone.
I was 8 or 9, and my mom had me butcher chicken, and she had a cone right there. Didn't tell me to use it. I mean, it's one of those things you just learn.
Use a cone on a chicken?
Well, you stick them in upside down, and the taper keeps their body like close together, and it kind of calms them down because they're upside down, and then their head is the only part sticking.
Oh yeah,
out.
all hell broke loose. It's like, nice telling me about the cone now.
Yeah, and then you use scissors and hear the
thing where you draw a line on the chicken's beak in the sand.
Yeah, have you ever seen that?
Yeah,
I've seen that.
Yeah.
My grandfather used to take 2 nails on a stump, get their head in between that, hold them by the feet, and then cut their head off with a hatchet and just hold them upside down. But that's an old Italian guy's way of doing it.
It's a good way to get painted.
Yeah, they just took it, and that's what it was.
Brandon, I think someone's got questions for you.
Yeah. So this time of the show, we usually ask them like 5 or so questions. Just blast them out there, see what you got to say about them.
Sure.
So here's the first one. Besides hunting, do you have any other hobbies or interests?
Yeah, I love to fish. I'm a fisherman. I was a fisherman before I really got into deer hunting. I mean, as a kid, I got into deer hunting fairly young, 10, 11, 12. But at a very, very young age, my dad took me fishing in the boat. I mean, we were out in the boat pretty much all the time. So I was catching, world-class fish by the time I was deer hunting. So I've always been a fisherman. Primarily, I take that mentality a lot to how I run scrapes and how I do a lot of things in the deer woods. But I love fishing. It's probably equal to whitetails. As much as I can fish, I fish, and I'm about to be getting into some catfish season here. We get some catfish over 50 pounds. That's probably my second hobby to deer. And then third would just be, I genuinely try to spend as much time with the family as I can. Today, I took my daughter, just me and her, to Denny's, and it was great.
Nice. That's great.
Now, is that inshore or offshore fishing?
Both, man. Yeah. So catfishing, we do inshore, lakes and rivers.
You're
Believe it or
serious?
not, we get a lot of these 50, 60, 80 pounders in like 2 feet of water in the rapids. It's crazy.
That's fucking crazy.
But we've got a Lake Gaston up the road. It's super deep, 100 and some feet deep. That's where the 115 pounder came out of. So we've got lakes and rivers, and then if you just drive a little bit to the east, we do some intercoastal fishing, and then even I'll go offshore. I'll usually do a few fishing charters. So last year I went out on Lake Michigan. We did a salmon trip. So this March,
where at?
we went out of Chicago. I have an office, so I work for a utility. So I manage the East Coast for a utility.
Okay.
And I actually have, even though I work from home here in North Carolina, I actually have an office in Chicago. So I have to go there periodically, and I go there every March. And so we have an annual fishing trip that we do. And so this March I'll be going back. And although I don't think we're going to salmon fish this year, we went out of Chicago Inlet, and we got our limit in cohos and got a big steelhead.
All right, brother. I am 100 miles from Chicago.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
So next time you're in Chicago in March, you let me know. I'll meet you down there. I go down there quite a bit for work.
Yeah.
I fish out of like the St. Joe area in Michigan. We hit the charters all the time. We're always on the lake.
I think the boys this year want to do some walleye and walleye.
We're all
fishing,
hammering. My buddy's already hammering walleye ice fishing up in the UP.
Yeah,
I'm going up there not next weekend because Dave and I are hunting, but the weekend after, I'll be up there ice fishing. They're hammering walleye and perch left and right. I think he got a 28-inch walleye. I think it was last week. I was like, holy shit! So yeah, if you're on Lake Michigan, man, I'll meet you. We'll fish.
my PB is 13.1 pounds.
Nice.
John, I
got
have
a
your
picture
question.
of it somewhere.
Yeah, we do walleye fishing on the Detroit River every year, like in April.
Yep.
That
See, every April I'm in South
it's
Carolina.
crazy there.
So
The Detroit River for walleye is crazy.
John, I didn't mean to laugh at your question. I thought there was a reasoning behind that. We can talk about that later. And
Oh,
David's
no,
gonna
you're good.
David's gonna be taking me ice fishing because I haven't done it since I was a kid.
Yeah, we're
Oh,
going, dude.
He doesn't have a choice. He's gonna fucking take me.
Well,
So,
fucking
in
Squatch
case
is
he's
supposed to take me fishing. I've been to the Northeast twice in the past month. He hasn't offered.
So
I ain't got no freaking ice.
yeah, no shit, right?
You
We
want to
had it for a couple days up in
You
the
want to
mountains,
fish in my
got it.
bathtub? You're more than welcome to come down.
Me and my boy just went to Maine, man. We drove by your house twice.
Son of a bitch! I can't
There
help
and
this.
back.
I don't make the weather, man.
No, we flew up. I'm teasing.
Hey, so the next question we got for you is: you can only choose one. You can only choose one. What weapon would you choose if the end of the world was here?
My 22 rimfire.
Yes, sir.
Nice. All right, got another one for you.
Sheer based on the amount of ammo I can carry.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
Nothing else.
Right.
You
All
got
right.
this one, Squatch?
Here's another one for you. What wild game animal is on your bucket list to hunt?
That's a good one. I have two. One's going to happen immediately, and one will probably never happen. The one that's going to happen hopefully this year will be a Sika deer with a bow and arrow.
Nice.
I take a lot of pride in not buying whitetail hunts. No offense to anybody who does. The sport can be played however everybody wants to do it. It's great. Have fun. I don't like to buy deer hunts. However, I know nothing about Sika deer. I mean, it would be like me trying to go to Canada and turkey hunt. I don't know anything about it. So I don't know how they call. I don't know when they rut. I don't know what the hell they eat. So I'm hoping to connect with a guide Sika deer hunting, someone who knows what the hell they're doing, and they can put me in an area with my bow. Semi-guided. Obviously I don't want to sit with somebody, but I'm looking for a semi-guided operation this year on Sika deer with my bow, and I want a buck.
Nice.
That being said, the real bucket list item that I have that will probably not happen is I want to kill a cougar with my bow. But I want to do it via natural encounter. Like, I don't want to tree it with dogs or call it in with a Fox Pro. I just want to be, every year I spot and stock a few deer with my bow. And if I were doing that in an area, maybe 10 years from now, I live in a state with some cougars and a cougar season. It would be really great to have that spot and stock encounter where I got a cougar with my bow. I don't think that'll ever happen, but I have no interest in shooting one like out of a tree. Again, I watch it on YouTube. I love watching it. The guys that do it, it's super cool. I'm jealous, but I don't want to do that. I want to shoot one organically, but that's just me.
Sure.
Okay. Now, if you had one animal that you could hunt and eat, what would it be? For me,
partridge.
Yeah. For me, I would love to hunt South Africa. We'll say a gemsbuck. Right, I'd love to hunt a gemsbuck and eat that, or a rhino or a giraffe.
Okay, I take it back because I take that back because the real answer would be an alligator. Yeah, because North Carolina, people don't realize how infested North Carolina is with alligators. I mean, I have so many encounters every year where I'm in my chest waders and I step on them and they take off.
See, and that's crazy for us Northerners to think.
I know, dude. And I'm talking huge alligators. So or they come up to you in the canoe. And just there's so many sketchy things that happen. So we have so many gigantic alligators in a lot of these back marshes, and I do think that's one of the reasons why I find such good deer, because I do think a lot of guys are scared to cross these places in waders, but once the locals do it, and so once you get used to it, it's fine. But there's been a lot of times where I'll step on a gator, and so I do think that we should open gator season, and it's amazing meat, and if they did that, I would certainly hunt them. But aside from that, if we're just talking something that on a random Tuesday I get done work and I want to grab a gun and walk out the door, I wish we had some partridge here, because ruffed grouse is probably the best eating bird, and they're so fun, and we just don't have them here in the Adirondacks. I mean, when we were kids, we'd ride our bikes and we'd even rode we'd do whatever we had to do to get a partridge. I mean, I remember one time my cousin hit one with a car and we ate it. Partridge, dude. Partridge are so good. If one flew into the side of your house and killed itself, it was like a gift from God, right?
Deer, brother.
So I wish we had grouse here, but aside from that, I really think they should open a gator season just because I'm fed up with having encounters and like it would be nice to be able to thin them out.
Go ahead,
Right.
Brett.
It's Brett.
All
They
right,
say that we have some, but they don't really. I mean, there's so many, man. It's like we have a lot of
question
gators.
for David. Are these called the rapid fire questions?
Hey,
They weren't rapid fire, were they?
David,
Yeah.
Why are you asking me?
is the title of this segment called rapid fire questions?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's like one answer, yes or no.
have you ever had to
We'll start
control
calling
your
these
fire in a fair
1
fight?
hour long questions.
We're conserving our ammo here, Brett. By ammo, I mean questions. So
I'm just giving you shit because I can't talk.
I know, and I love it. Man.
Keep that son of a bitch here all night. He can't object. No, just
It's like he's over there getting high.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, brother. What has been your favorite state you've hunted, Brandon?
North Carolina.
And why is that?
It was the hardest state. It's the hardest state to hunt in the entire country. It's the hardest state to kill
Fuck
big
off.
bucks in the entire country.
Amen, brother.
Fuck
Now,
off.
if you could hunt any
Michigan.
state, what would it be?
If I could hunt any state,
Any state in the U.S.
Missouri,
Why is that?
all the
Missouri.
lakes.
Right. I've hunted Kansas and Missouri both. So
Lakes equal booners.
yeah.
Well, you seen that 6-point my buddy shot.
Oh, dude, that 6-point was crazy. So I've never, believe it or not, I've never white-tailed hunted Missouri. I've always waterfowl, which
My buddy's done that.
unbelievable waterfowl in Missouri.
He's only bird hunted down in Missouri. He has
I think
hunted
Missouri's underrated. If I was to gamble, if I was just going to blindly buy 500 acres somewhere, it would be Missouri.
Yep.
Oh, hands down. So Missouri,
I think you're wrong. I think Missouri's up there. I think Maryland is the one that's underrated.
Maryland is definitely underrated.
West
I think that's
Virginia
the
is
one.
too, I think.
West
I mean,
Virginia.
if we're talking about just sheer like crazy big bucks, I mean Long Island, dude. Like I
Oh,
got
yeah,
bucks.
oh yeah, yeah.
Freaking Long Island.
I mean, dude.
Hunting out of telephone poles in Long Island.
Right with old Dave.
Yep.
I got like 4 buddies in Long Island, and it's like every day I get like a day walker, a booner, day walker, booner, day walker, maybe 200 day walker, booner. It's like Jesus, dude.
All right. So now, if you could hunt with one famous person or one celebrity, who would it be?
That's a good question. It would be God. I'm not prepared for this one. One famous person.
Yep.
You could say Dolly Parton. It's all right, man.
I was thinking Jim Shockey, but
I've met Jim Shockey. I've met
Jim Shockey's dad would be one I'd want to hunt with.
Yeah, that guy's
if he
pretty
was
cool.
still alive.
Jim Shockey's new wife. Have you seen her? Holy!
I'm gonna have to pass on that one. I don't know. I don't really deer hunt with many
There's
people.
no fucking passing in this shit.
No. Brett, hold on.
Whitetails are a solo endeavor for
Exactly,
me. So even
brother.
if it's Jim Shockey, he's gonna try to steal my daywalkers.
So now, famous people aside, if you could bring that back one person from your past to hunt with, who would it be?
My grandfather Bert.
Exactly. It's always the grandpa, right?
A lot of the times it is, yeah.
A lot of the times it is.
Yeah.
My grandfather Bert was a big bug killer before big bug killing was a thing. He was a power company lineman up in New York State, and he had a 201-inch typical 10 on his wall. And I didn't know anything about inches back in the day, but I grew up staring at that thing. And my dream is to kill a 200-inch 10-point because of that deer, and I probably never will. But my grandfather taught me a lot about deer hunting with respect to tracking. And I grew up as a small kid hunting agricultural farms where we would hunt the field edges and stuff, and it was really ineffective and it was silly. And then as I became a man and I got my grandfather passed and I got all these journals from him and I've reflected back on some of the things he taught me, I was able to try to take the knowledge that was in those journals and the knowledge that he gave me, and I learned how to track deer, and that led me to how I hunt deer now. And without that base, I would have never came to North Carolina and been able to be successful the way that I am, killing as many deer as I do year over without being able to track. So I really credit my grandfather for that. I did not get tracking skills from any other family member. I learned a lot about hunting and fishing from one of my cousins, but tracking wise was probably the most beneficial thing in my life.
Nice.
Okay, so that leads us into our next question, which what do you think we could do to influence the next generation into hunting? So you said that your grandparent or your grandpa was huge and influential on you to get into the hunting lifestyle, right? What do you think that you can do to bring the next generation into hunting?
Educate them. I think that's probably the second biggest thing you can do. The number one thing you can do is take your kids hunting, or take someone's kids hunting, because without that aspect of it, it's really hard. But what I do, like, I get a lot of messages daily, or not daily, maybe weekly, where gals are just getting into the sport, and I'm helping them get on deer. And so age wise, sometimes, like, we'll define a kid. Is he 9 or is he 19? Because it's still kind of a kid and they're just getting into the sport. So take a kid hunting, but if you can't take a kid hunting, the second best thing you can do is you can educate them. Because if that 19-year-old goes in the woods 10 times and strikes out, he might say, you know what, this sucks. Because hunting does have levels, even, like, some people don't like to admit that, but so does fishing. I mean, if you're just going to put a worm on a bobber, you might catch brim. You're not going to catch mahi, and muskie. Hunting has levels too. And so if you can educate someone who's new and teach them just the fundamentals so that they can have some encounters, even if it's a deer blowing at them, they have some encounters, they get excited. So take kids hunting, but education.
Because I have 3 kids, and I will tell them, hey, this is what we're going to do for hunting wise, blah, blah, blah. And I'll tell them everything that I know, right? I'll get them into the woods, and they'll sit there, and then they'll look at me and be like, well, so-and-so said we should be doing this, or so-and-so should be doing this. And those so-and-sos are other hunters on Instagram or YouTube or whatever. I'm like, well, fuck, kid. Yeah, we should be doing that, but I wanted to ease you into it. So, like, hearing that, I love bringing my kids out hunting. Like, my oldest daughter, she was 4.5 when she shot her first deer.
Yeah, I mean, your instructions might not lead to a harvest. I mean, it might just be like, hey, if you walk down in this drainage, you're going to bump a bunch of deer. Go do it. And then they go down in there, and they were running all around me, and it's like, well, that was mission 1. Like, you got to just go for the deer. And you're not going to kill them if you don't find them. That was rule 1.
Oh, yeah. And you walk in with your kids, and you jump a bunch of deer, and you're like, oh, man, this sucks. We just jumped them. But in the kids' eyes, they're like, well, we just jumped a bunch of deer. It's like, that's right, man. We did.
It's information overload. When you start talking to new hunters about, all right, you got to get a place to hunt. Then you got to find deer. Then you got to learn how to read the sign. Well, now you need to pattern the deer. And then you got to work on your access. And then, well, you think you're done when it comes to the shot, but you got to recover the animal. And you start bogging them down. It's too much. You got to start simple. Look, go down in there and find some deer and jump them. Oh, they did that. Yeah. And it's like, oh, okay, well, what'd you see for signs? How big were the tracks? You didn't measure them? Walk back down there and measure them.
Exactly.
Were they does? Were they fawns? How old were the fawns? You don't know. You didn't measure the tracks. So you got to make them go down and have the encounter, and then make them collect a little data, and then they'll report back, oh, I drew on a doe and I couldn't get it done. But you got to get them involved. I think education is important, because for me, I have a daughter that's not really into hunting, but so I don't get to take a lot of children hunting. But so when you don't have that, the next best thing, I think, is, that's why I said define a kid. Is he 9 or 19? Because if he's 19, the best thing you can really do is help him just have an encounter.
Exactly.
So he doesn't quit.
I've got 3 kids. My youngest is 5, and he's been in the woods with me already hunting. And I'm just trying to submerge him into that lifestyle as much as I can.
Something so damaging, I think, to a kid. And again, teach their own, because it's a great story when you see it on Instagram. It warms your heart when you see a little boy sit in a blind and kill a giant buck. Mm-hmm. But it's like,
realistically, you have
that's almost worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know that's controversial to say, right? Like class. Yeah, right. Like
when shoot a Michigan 11 point, some spike,
Yeah, but if you're a 5-year-old Drury, you're gonna kill a 160.
Exactly.
You know what I mean, with a 270. And so the point is like, I don't know. I think it's better to just teach people to go have encounters and.
Yep. Having encounters is it, right?
And setting that expectation early that hunting's hard.
Yes. My daughter shot a 7-point her first year. 5 point, like a little yearling the second year. Then her third year, I took her out. She was 7 years old, and she didn't shoot a buck that year. And she was so mad. And she's like, I didn't shoot a deer. I didn't shoot a deer, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, that happens. Welcome to the real world. Mm-hmm. Like, it sucks, yeah. But what did you learn? Mm-hmm. Well, I learned not to hunt here, here, and here. Yeah. Okay, but why? And then eventually, it's my daughter. She said, well, I learned not to hunt with you. I'm going to hunt with grandpa or something like that,
Well, what's really nice is with the three of us, we nurture Brett, our little brother.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it warms my heart when Brett has some questions that he wants to ask.
When Brett dropped that buck, that was a proud dad moment right there.
If I had a wallet with all the dropout pictures in it, I would have showed.
Yeah, I would have totally Brett first picture right there.
Yep.
That's my boy.
I rubbed my son down with Ben Gay the whole night.
Ben Gay? Nope, never tried it.
Just make sure you wash your hands before you take a piss.
That's right. Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's atomic bomb. That's what you don't.
I'll tell you what, man. Don't ever handle like jalapeno peppers and then touch the old private region, boy. You'll regret that. Oof. Ask me how I know.
Yep. His vagina hurt the next day.
My mangina was burning.
As long as it was yours.
Oh man. Oh yeah. No, I've got it thrown out.
Yeah.
So what do you say, Mr. Bovin? Do you want to go more, or are we gonna shut her down?
Wrap it up here.
Getting on that time.
Usually I'm the one that does the outro stuff, but I'll do this part and someone else might have to do the end of it. Brandon, for anyone that wants to follow along your journey, first off, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the show. I greatly appreciate it. I know everyone on the team appreciates it. Everyone watching, and I'm sure they appreciate it as well. If people want to reach out to you and follow along your journey, how can they reach out to you?
Thanks. I appreciate that, Brett. It was an honor to be on the show. Thank you very much. And it was great to see everybody else. Brandon Barlow. So you can find me on Instagram, _Brandon_Barlow. Just like you see on the screen. It's really the best place to find me. You probably won't reach me on Facebook, and my YouTube is just a shit show. So connect with me on Instagram. It really is where I drop the majority of my content. Anything that I'm talking strategy wise. I mean, one of my sayings is, if you're hunting hot sign, you're a day behind. And it's true. You've got to get out in front of these bucks, and you've got to hunt the right place at the right time. So check me out on Instagram, Brandon_Barlow. And thank you, Brett. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Brandon. Greatly appreciate it. Have a good rest of your night, man. And Johnny, do you want to take it out for the night?
Yeah, for sure. If you guys are not following, go ahead.
Hang on. Don't hang on. Wait.
Yes. Dun dun dun.
Oh no, I don't want that.
All right. Well, guys, thank you for another episode. If you're not following, go ahead and follow us at Whitetail Advantage Podcast. Join us next Sunday for a whole new episode.
All the bullet points are right there, bro.
Yeah, I know. I see it. Don't worry. All right. So that was Brett, the actual host. Let me go ahead. Website. Yeah. Go to the website, whitetailadvantage.com. Follow us there. Like, share, and subscribe. The audio podcast will be released tomorrow, which is Monday, January 6th. If you are a bow hunter, go ahead and buy your broadheads from Rec Broadheads. Go ahead and use the discount code.
You're fucking it up, John. Your internet's fucking up. Because I love you, but you're doing great. Yeah. Your internet was glitching in and out, I think. Anyways, yeah, go ahead and check out our website, www.whitetailadvantage.com. Make sure to like and subscribe. Our audio version of our podcast will be released tomorrow at 5 a.m. on Monday. If you're a bow hunter and you want some new broadheads, make sure to go check out Rec and make sure to use the code WA15. Get a discount off their products as well. Make sure to go check out Magnus Broadheads as well and go check out Flavors of the Forest. I know Johnny and Squatch, they use that on everything. And so do I. They gave me some of their stuff and man, that shit is delicious. So make sure you get yourself some of that stuff there. Make sure you go to Carbon TV and check us out there. You can give us a positive review on there. It'd be greatly appreciated. Make sure we're also on Waypoint TV as well. And with that being said, I just want to say thank you, everyone, for tuning in for tonight's show. I greatly appreciate it. Make sure to put your cord in the slot machine, and we'll see everyone on Tuesday for our next live show.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Whitetail Advantage Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we will see you next time.